All right, so responding to more comments on the video about social accounts, where I was discussing how I might go along with setting up lots of different devices to manage different projects and channels and stuff, and subsequently each of the social accounts for all of those. People had different ideas in the comments about ways to do it. So virtual machines came up. Hayden, I recognize you, obviously. You're not the only one that suggested it. Other people had ideas for things like just multiple user accounts on one computer. And then I said, my main concern with managing like hundreds of accounts on one device is, well, first of all, it seems like a bit of a redundancy thing. You'd have to set all that up again on a different computer if this one kicked the bucket. But also physical presence, which is what we're going to speak about. So there was a discussion a while back. I can't remember if it was a video from CGP Grey or someone else who did a video about separate physical environments for like productivity and stuff, like back in the 2020 era when people were starting to work from home. And a lot of people were discussing whether it's better to work and have separate spaces for separate purposes or just be all in one place. Now, I was traditionally against the idea of having separate physical spaces for different types of work because I was always so effective on just one desktop, and I still am. You know, I play video games, I watch films, and I do my work here, and I do that quite well, but there's still lots of areas where there's room for improvement, which is something I'm getting, better at. Rather than getting distracted and looking at Reddit all day, I'm now taking the time to do things like this, which I feel like is more productive than just mindless browsing. However, I do feel like there's utility for physical presence in the way of a different mindset. So for other projects I wanted to do, and I've been a bit hesitant about actually saying what they are because of that psychological rule of not announcing before you do something, but other projects I wanted to do that are more artistic or include work with other people or include me being more delusional, that's going to be a weird one to explain, might benefit from different physical presence in the way that I have to pretend to be someone else. So putting those things together, this kind of redundancy thing about lots of accounts and pretending to be someone else while doing the work, not like in an impersonation way, but like a different personality, if you like. Because if you're going to do things like, physical art, for an example, I do physical artwork, but to sell that, I feel like I have to be a bit more delusional. That's actually a discussion I wanted to do at some point, like in a proper video, the power of delusion, and also just the different places where you can attribute value and how there's like no proper answer. Value is in the eye of the beholder. Also, it reminds me of a podcast with Grimes, the music artist, who I used to be a massive fan of Grimes, but then, all the somewhat political stuff going on, and then I'm not so much of a fan anymore. But she does have an interesting way of thinking about things, because Grimes is, I think, aware that she has a bit of a different approach to making music than other artists. She's not necessarily the best singer in the world, but then again, it's subjective, right? Not necessarily the best at structuring music or like performing live on stage, but she has a bit of a superpower, I think, creatively, imagining yourself as a fictional character when making creative work. And if you compare that to someone who like gets embarrassed easily, especially with something like making music, you think there's a lot of music, there are sounds you like, maybe you're a bit creative or divergent, and there's sounds you like that other people won't really understand, or a style of singing or whatever. Okay, I listen to some K-pop. I'm not afraid to admit that. K-pop is a really wide genre. It can include all sorts of things, from like really happy, cutesy stuff to really dark and menacing stuff. But I imagine that there may be like guys that are in masculine environments that like the sound of K-pop, but don't really know how to tell their friends that they do. So you get that there's kind of like this embarrassment factor. But let's say you were expressive and you wanted to make music like that. Well, if you are yourself the forefront, like the forerunner, if people hear the music and see your name attached to it, then maybe you are subject to some ridicule in your circles. It's easy to say ignore that, but it's just how it is. But the power of aliases, pretending to be someone else, gives you the freedom to explore that and still learn while mitigating that embarrassment. So obviously there are lots of things that I want to do, but it has always been a question of how much do I put my name on it? How much do I alias things? Oh, right ear tinnitus. Note for BPPV, hang on. Maybe I'll leave this in the video. That's a long one. Sorry about that. Obviously, I've got vestibular problems, and I might have mentioned in one previous video that when I'm in like a risk factor phase, like if I've had caffeine or lansoprazole, which is a PPI, or like other diuretics, or if I've been active like swimming, then one important thing I look out for is whether I get sudden spontaneous tinnitus in one ear, because it's usually a sign to tell me that there's a problem with the canals in one of the ears. It's kind of like the body's signaling system. It's a really weird thing I picked up on, and I just had a really strong tone on the right ear there, and I had caffeine earlier. So what I do is I make a note of that in medical document that I've always got open in a tab. So if I suddenly start feeling dizzy in the coming days, I'll look back and remember this was an important signal. Sorry, I've just completely lost where I was in the conversation. But yeah, aliases. So thinking back to physical separation, I feel like if we're physically present in a different space, maybe if it's a different computer and we can slightly change the decoration of it, you know, even if it's just like one little figurine or a small plant or something, maybe these could be like cues, a bit like an actor to kind of get into a mood or something. So the idea of like virtual desktops and stuff, perfectly valid. Maybe that will be the way that I have to go in the future. Maybe this whole separation idea won't work out. It might be worth experimenting with though. And yeah, I just thought it might be an interesting thing to speak about. I would show you what I've done so far. The camera is too ingrained in cables for me to show you. Maybe I'll put a picture up on the screen and then you can see the mess that I've already started making. All right, thanks for watching everyone. If you're new here, we chat about random stuff. I've got a studio. I do 3D and Blender related things on the main channel. I make products. It's a whole collection of things. If there's anything you want me to talk about, I would love to get more proactive with conversations in the community. I've also got a Discord server if you want to join. If you go to codasol.online/links, you'll find a join link there. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments and let me know. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, unicorn emoji in the comments, and I will see you next time.